Between the years of roughly 900 and 1900, there was an enormous amount of scientific discovery. Computers were already beginning to emerge. They were digital and analog and mechanical in 1900. Anesthetic was being developed for surgery. And you go back, and during that period, the steam engine and the mass production of fabric for clothing, an enormous amount went on in that period that made life more livable, that made life healthier, that made life longer, that made life more pleasurable. All of that came about in these years between 900 and 1900. That's indisputable. That's not even bothersome to anybody. Here is the bothersome information. Over 97% of all of these discoveries, developments, technical, medical advances came about in Christian societies. That is a problem. Because it's not supposed to work that way, is it? If all human beings are identical and all cultures are of equal value, how do you explain the fact that not only did 97% of all of the most important technological advances of the most important 1,000 years of human scientific history take place in Christian societies, but the overwhelming majority of them were discovered by Christian scientists? And one of the greatest confidence tricks that has been perpetrated on academia today is the notion that religion is somehow responsible for constraining scientific advance. That somehow, in order to really progress scientifically and technologically, we must free ourselves from the constraints of religion, from the rules and rituals and restraints. Not at all. The true history of science is that it was a consequence of Christianity, not in spite of Christianity. This is so disturbing that people in the culture out there they suffer from what's called cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is where you block out information that is just too uncomfortable to tolerate. You just don't want to know. If you've ever seen the mother of a thug who's just been convicted of his 19th murder, he's got a rap sheet 3 miles long. And the witnesses are there, the evidence is there, everything is there, and the television camera is homing on this poor woman who says, "My John was a good boy. He didn't do all of this." She's telling the truth. In her mind, he didn't. It's not possible. Her mind totally blocks out the information that tells us what Johnny really did. She can't tolerate it. God created us with a defense mechanism to block out utterly painful information. The academic world blocks out this information. But I didn't make it up. It's there. And I'm not telling you you have to accept my answer. I'm just saying, why don't you come up with a better answer? Here's my answer for what it's worth. If you have a better one, you should tell me. It'll save me making a fool of myself next time I say this. The answer is very simple. The answer is because Judeo-Christian culture, biblical culture, has a sentence that everybody knows. You can take a 10-year-old little girl and say to her, "Finish this sentence for me. In the beginning, God created..." That's all there is to it. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. No other culture commences its presentation of reality with that statement. None. No other culture at all. We didn't start with the Ten Commandments. We didn't start with the Exodus. We didn't start with the laws of the dietary rituals and restraints of kosher food. We started off with the basic information that God created heaven and earth. And having this statement, "In the beginning God created heaven and earth," I now know that if I study heaven and earth, I will get close to He who created them. It's His work. Nobody else has that as the foundation of their culture other than the Judeo-Christian biblical civilization. No one else. And look what it did with that. 97% of the scientific and medical advances that made life what it is for us today come out of that simple statement. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. That's where it comes from. It is not an accident that, now listen to me carefully on this one, because it's just as disturbing as the first question. Hey, why is it that 97% of the advances came from Christian societies and mostly by Christian scientists? Go on, give me an explanation for that. That doesn't have anything to do with the Bible. I've issued this challenge to hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of audiences. I've issued the challenge on radio and television. Nobody will give me another answer. Nobody. You see, we happen to be living in the very first generation of human beings in the West who consider themselves educated but are biblically illiterate. It's unbelievable. Television is populated by pundits who consider themselves to be sophisticated and knowledgeable. They don't know the names of the first 5 books of the Bible. Do not know it. And quite comfortable in their abysmal ignorance. This was never true before. Until the end of the 1900s, the beginning of the 20th century, there was no educated Englishman who was not educated in the Bible. There was no such thing. And that's why the English language is so filled with biblical metaphor. All of a sudden, the 20th century dawns and moves along, and here we are at the beginning of the 21st. People think they're educated, and they are biblical ignoramuses.